What's up, ladies and non-ladies? Today we're going to be talking about the new monsters released in the latest patch, the so-called twins, and we're going to farm some runes in the background at the same time. Now, some of these monsters look pretty sweet. I'm pretty excited to get a couple of them. So let's go ahead and start at the top, and I will let you know what I think about them. So one thing that's very important to understand was very hard to piece together from the way the fairly horrible descriptions are written. So you have two of these monsters, one a Chakram Dancer and two a Boomerang Warrior. Now anytime you attack with either of them, the other one is going to use their auto attack as well. So if it's the Boomerang Warrior's turn and you do anything, whether it's the first, second, or third skill, the Chakram Dancer will use her auto attack at the same time. That is one chunk of the things that's happening. What also happens is most of them have a third skill, and when you use that third skill and it brings its partner in to use their auto attack gains an extra ability, essentially kind of mimicking what the first monster whose original turn it is doing with their third skill. Now that'll make a little bit more sense as we look at the individual monsters themselves. So let's start with this Fire Chakram Dancer. Now right off the bat, we've got a 24% arena attack speed leader skill. Mucho, mucho bueno. Now the auto attack for the Chakram Dancer isn't super impressive in my opinion, but you have to remember that the Boomerang Warrior is also going to be attacking with the Chakram Dancer whenever the Chakram Dancer goes, and the Boomerang Warriors have an auto attack armor break, so you're going to get that as well when they're paired together. Now the second skill on the Fire Chakram Dancer is very, very interesting. It is an AoE, it hits 2 times, and it's a 30% stun on a 4-turn cooldown. Now you can upgrade the stun to a 40% proc chance on a 3-turn cooldown. That is a pretty nice stun. When you do that, you're also going to get the Boomerang Warrior to use its auto attack on something. And then my favorite part about the Fire Chakram Dancer is her passive. She's got an armor break built into her passive, and she's got an attack bar knockback that's only going to proc when the enemy has a harmful effect. So during her skill 1, which is a single target, and her skill 2, which is an AoE, she's going to be armor breaking and knocking the enemy's attack bar back by 15% if they have a debuff. And if there's a Boomerang Warrior paired with her, the Boomerang Warrior will also be knocking the attack bar back by 15%, because that is the extra thing that's granted through the passive on the Fire Chakram Dancer. The Fire Chakram Dancer looks to be one of my favorites out of the new group. Now next we have the Wind Chakram Dancer, which unfortunately I'm not quite as happy with. You have a hit point lead in the arena instead of speed, which isn't, worthless, but I do prefer the speed lead by quite a bit. The Wind Chakram Dancer doesn't have anything too fancy going on with her auto attack. The Fire one doesn't by itself, but the Fire one has a sweet passive that makes her auto attack much better. The Wind number 2 is mediocre, I think. You're going to hit someone twice, break their armor the first time, and then break them the second time. Now, I'm definitely not going to complain that that's garbage, but it is not the gloriousness, I think, that you get out of the Chakram Fire Dancer. And then where the Wind Chakram Dancer does have something quote-unquote good, but still I'm not super impressed with, is her third skill. Frankly, I don't think you're going to be using the Chakram Dancer unless she's your only dancer and you have a really strong Boomerang Warrior that you want to pair her with, but maybe I'm wrong. So the third on the Wind Chakram Dancer, she ignores all damage reduction effects and does extra damage based on the number of beneficial and harmful effects on the target. So I could see some sort of interaction there, but it looks to be very gimmicky and it's not a huge nuke. No one uses, say, like the Dark Cowgirl, who has the same kind of thing. So I'm not seeing this chick get used much unless you're wanting to use a Boomerang Warrior, and this is the only Chakram Dancer you have to pair with her. Next up, we have the Water Chakram Dancer, which I think is probably in the middle of the regular Rainbow Element ones. You've got a crit rate lead for Arena instead of the attack speed or the hit points. And then you have the same relatively boring auto attack that the Wind one has, since it's not buffed by a passive like the Fires. For your second skill is relatively interesting. You've got a self cleanse and an attack buff that's going to give you another turn. The problem is you have to cast it, so it will not cleanse stuns and freezes, but it will cleanse like an attack break or a glancing debuff. And then it's really nice that it gives you another turn, which kind of sets you up for your nuke, which is where the Water Chakram Dancer shines. So her third skill has a 380% damage multiplier that hits 2 times, so you're looking at a 760% multiplier. And she has 780 base attack, which is a pretty solid number. So we're expecting big damage out of this girl's third skill. And if you hit something that is below half health, you're going to do an extra 50%. So if you're hitting a boss or you're chugging down on a really big bruiser, if you can hit them in that 40% range, they are dunsies. Single target nukes are not my favorite thing, but given the other amount of utility she has and then the interaction with the Boomerang Warriors, I wouldn't be upset at all to grab one of these things. So next up is the Light Chakram Dancer, and this, in my opinion, is where it gets very interesting again. So you have an attack power lead for the Arena, which I'm not super enthralled about, and you have the same auto attack as all the other ones, but her auto attack and her second skill is going to get powered up by a passive, just like the Fire one. She also happens to have the same second skill as the Fire one, the AoE stun on a double hit with a 40% activation on a 3-turn cooldown. Now the passive is also great, but it is different than the Fire ones. So what hers is going to do is hers is going to give her a 25% chance to ignore the enemy's armor if she's hitting an enemy that is either stunned or frozen or slept. Now, the other nifty thing about this is that whenever a Boomerang Warrior attacks with her, they are also going to get that 25% chance to ignore armor. So she is going to have some YOLO potential on ignoring armor and wrecking some face. And then because it's a passive, she is going to get that chance to proc on both her auto attack, which is a double hit, and her second skill, which is a AoE double hit. So when she procs her second skill, or when she casts her second skill, there's going to be a relatively large chance that she's going to proc that passive, assuming you've got some stuns out. And her second skill is a stun. Now the dark one I think is also very interesting, a little bit harder to gauge, so we're going to have to see this one in action a little bit, but I'm pretty sure the dark one is either going to be the best, the second best, or the third best. I think it is going to weave in somewhere either right in front of or right behind the Fire and the Light ones. I'm looking at it as probably Fire best, Dark next, Light next, and then Water Wind. Now, the Dark one has an accuracy leader in the Arena instead of the other ones, so probably one of the weaker ones, unless you're trying to, yeah, you're really not going to be able to fit this into like a Galleon team. So I'm not thinking that having a whole lot of strength in the Arena, and the leader skill is only active in the Arena. There's no passive on the Dark one, So the Dark One's auto attack is going to be not super amazing. And then the second skill on the Dark One is going to be that same self cleanse attack buff, gain another turn, that we had on the Water One. And for good reason, because the Dark One's third is a big, big nuke, just like the Water One. So the Dark Chakram Dancer has 790 base attack, which is a very good number. She has an 800 multiplier on her third, which is a really, really good number. That's about as high as they get. And then her nuke gets a little bit better and super, super complicated. So first off, the Dark Chakram's third is a single target strip, and it is a double hit. But it looks like each hit will be a full strip. So you have two chances to proc a 100% strip, which is great. When you strip the enemy, you're going to be replacing those beneficial effects with dots, like a Praha would. You're also going to be lowering the enemy's life by 5% immediately for every dot you put on them. So it's kind of like the dots tick for an extra turn. And then additionally, if you have a Boomerang Warrior with her, the Boomerang Warrior will apply dots also when attacking with the Dark Chakram Dancer. Alright, that's it for the Chakram Dancers. I know that was a lot of info and some of it is kind of confusing, but I tried to break it down as cleanly as possible. So let's go take a look at the other half of this monster, the Boomerang Warriors, that also got released today. So let's keep the same pattern and start with the Fire Boomerang Warrior. Now first off, before we dig into this one specifically, I like all of the Boomerang Warriors. I think the Boomerang Warriors are better monsters overall. I would really, really like to get a Fire Chakram Dancer and any of the Boomerang Warriors. I think that will make for a very, very nice combo. So all of the Boomerang Warriors have a Guild Battle leader skill instead of an arena leader skill, with the Fire one getting a hit point leader skill. And then all of the Boomerang Warriors have an armor break on their auto attack, which is super, super nice. In addition, the Fire one has an AoE stun on her second skill, which is extremely nice. And then as if that wasn't enough, she also has an AoE stun on her third skill. The AoE stun on her second skill has a 50% activation. The AoE stun on her third skill is a 100% activation. This chick, I think, is going to be a monster. And when Fire Boomerang Warrior is taking a turn, so she's granting any of the Chakram Dancers to attack with her, that Chakram Dancer is going to have a guaranteed stun added to its auto attack. I am foreseeing much, much pain being delivered by this chick in Guild Wars, and it's not downhill from here. They're all pretty damn cool. So next up we have the Wind Boomerang Warrior, which is kind of reminiscent of a couple of the Chakram Dancers. So the Boomerang Warrior Wind is going to get the same armor break on her first skill as all the other ones, which by the way, she has an attack speed buff for Guild Wars, so that'll be sweet. Her second skill removes all harmful effects on herself and gives her attack power and gives her another turn, like we saw on a couple of the Chakram Dancers. And then her third is going to kind of mimic that with a little bit less damage and some extra awesome utility compared to some of the Chakram Dancers. So her third only has a 630% multiplier, but it adds a stun to the target and increases the duration of a harmful effect on the enemy target. In addition to that, whenever it's Boomerang Warrior's turn and you're bringing a Chakram Dancer with you, the Chakram Dancer is going to have a 50% chance to extend debuffs on anything she hits. Very, very nice kit right here. Next up, we have the Water Boomerang Warrior, who is a little bit weird in what she has. She might end up finding herself very strong in specific niche applications, either because of herself or what she's going to grant to her buddy, whichever Chakram Dancer you have with her. So right off the bat, you've got an accuracy leader skill for guild battles only. Not super impressed by that. You have the same auto attack armor break that all of the Boomerang Warriors have. And then you have a very nice armor break on her number 2. It's a triple hit with a 50% chance to decrease the armor and attack power of the enemy, and then what looks to be a 100% chance on each hit to disturb the hit point recovery. The triple hit has a 180% multiplier on each, which makes for a 640% skill 2. That is a very large skill 2. Then you've got a passive with quite a bit of potential on it. The Water Boomerang Warrior is going to take 35% less damage from any enemy with a beneficial effect, and she's going to deal 35% more damage to enemies with no beneficial effects. Now, I'm not as happy with the second half, because if they don't have an armor break, you're not doing good damage anyway. But I'm very, very pleased that she's going to take 35% less damage from any enemy with a buff. In addition to that, she will grant this passive to any Chakram Dancer that is paired with her. This brings up lots of potential to bring Water Boomerang Warrior and any Chakram Dancer and turn that Chakram Dancer into a tank. 35% is very, very respectable for a damage reduction. Next up, we have the Light Boomerang Warrior, which brings a whole bunch of fun stuff to the table. Now, she has a crit rate buff as a leader skill for guild battles only. So that is, in my opinion, one of the more useful Guild War leader skills. I'm pretty happy with that. She also has the armor break that all the other ones have on her skill 1. And then her skill 2 is going to be the self cleanse, attack buff, and turn reset that a bunch of these monsters get. And then her skill 3 is something very, very new and very, very interesting. Her third skill is going to be an AoE attack that has attack speed scaling on it. It is also going to give her 10% attack bar anytime she gets a crit. So realistically, she's going to be getting 30 to 40% of her attack bar back depending on where you're using her. And then, as if that wasn't enough, whenever you're pairing Light Boomerang Warrior with any of the Chakram Dancers, the Chakram Dancer is going to get 20% of her attack bar back anytime her attacks land as a critical hit, which will be nice for any of them, assuming they're built as a DPS unit. I'm a huge, huge fan of anything that scales with attack speed, so I am quite interested to see how much damage this chick is going to be dealing. And then lastly, but definitely not least, we have the Dark Boomerang Warrior. This chick, I'm pretty sure, is going to be very strong. This is going to be another one where it's going to take a little bit of time for us to see exactly how strong, because she's kind of convoluted. So, like the other ones, she has a guild-only leader skill. It is attack power, not one of my favorite, but definitely not useless. She has the same 50% auto attack armor break that all of the Boomerang Warriors have. And then she has that really cool second skill that's going to hit them 3 times and armor break and attack break them with a 50% chance, and disturb hit point recovery with a 100% chance, which will be not only decent amount of damage given that it is a triple hit with a 180% multiplier, very, very nice utility there. Now the passive on the Dark Boomerang Warrior is definitely good, but it is hard to tell how good it is, and that's what's going to kind of be up in the air as far as how valuable this chick's going to end up being for us. So her passive, anytime she's attacking something, she is going to steal a beneficial effect from the enemy. Now, keep in mind that her second skill is a triple hit, so she'll be able to steal 3 beneficial effects. In addition to that, her damage is going to be increased by 50% up to 3 times, depending on how many beneficial effects she steals. On top of that, whenever she steals a beneficial effect, it looks like it's going to give that beneficial effect to her, the Boomerang Warrior, and then also to the Chakram Dancer, which is pretty sweet depending on which beneficial effect you are taking. Something else that is going to be a big factor in how strong this chick is that the wording is not super clear on her passive. If it follows the pattern of the rest of the stuff, the Chakram Dancer that is paired with her would gain the ability to actually do the beneficial effect stealing. But the way the words are actually written, it looks like the Chakram Dancer is just going to gain the buffs stolen by the Boomerang Warrior and not actually be able to steal them themselves. But Come to Us is super, super known for having fairly terrible skill descriptions. So how that actually works is going to take a little bit of time. We're going to have to wait for someone to drudge up a Dark Boomerang Warrior and one of the Chakram Dancers and do some testing. Even without that, I like it very, very much. If it does give both of them the ability to steal beneficial effects, that is like Iris level. Alright guys, that's about it for this one. That was a long one with a whole bunch of words, but we had 10 monsters to go over. All in all, I really, really want to get pretty much any of the Boomerang Warriors and a Fire Chakram Dancer so I can start playing with them. If I do, you guys will definitely see it, but I'm seeing or foreseeing quite a bit of use out of the pairing of these guys. They have lots and lots of really cool skills. Alright guys, I'm going to get out of here. As always, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and if you did enjoy yourselves, please let me know with that like and subscribe button. Have a good weekend, and I will see you guys next time.